Now, good morning, students. We are moving on to another lecture, and we are now moving on to a lecture that entails something to do with the negotiation. But we are going to look at what it refers to as negotiation process. So we shall look at the process of negotiation in a short while. Now, let's look at the process of negotiation. Then this is lecture that will entail to make us understand what negotiation process is all about. Now, whenever you talk of a process, then a process is like a journey. A process is a procedure. A process many times has been a procedure, and it has been a way of doing things. But in this discussion this morning, we are going to look at this procedure, then we try to what is called negotiation. Now, I have a short piece written there at the top of my slide. And that short piece is about negotiation as a process. So I want us to look at that short quotation. Look at that short quotation and understand how negotiation becomes a process. So at this point in time, I want to say that negotiation is nothing discussion is nothing but a discussion. So whenever you are talking about the question of negotiation, then think about the issues to do with the discussions. So it is argued out that is a discussion among individuals to reach an alternative that satisfies all. So this should endeavor to satisfy all individuals. So the process of negotiation is meant to satisfy all individuals. No one gains, no one loses. So you need to understand that in doing negotiation, then you don't have issues of one losing, another one gaining. That is not the case. And that's not what we want to discuss here. So no one gains, no one loses. But as we shall see, there are some cases where negotiation, rare cases where negotiation makes some individuals or lose. And we are saying that an effective communication is directly proportional to an effective negotiation. So negotiation in this case is a process of good communication skills. And the better the communication is, the better the negotiation. So you need to think about how you will negotiate with people and how you talk with the people so that you deal with the issues that are at play. So because it's a process, then that process needs also language, needs good communication skills, as we shall see in detail. So communication is imperative in this case. We look at communication being an important aspect of life, and communication being an area that entails that entails people. So we will move on. We move on to something else. So then we have the lesson or the training objective. We have two training objectives that I want us to look at so that by the time you finish the training, you understand clearly why you trained and what you will be able to do. So by the end of the training, the attendee should be able to explain negotiation process. So you should be able to explain the negotiation process. And we have said that negotiation is a journey. It's a long journey that involves all individuals to take a part or two to ensure that the process is clear. Then you also state the stages of negotiation because it's a stage-wise process, so you need to state the stages of negotiation. You state the stages of negotiation. Now there are stages that we shall look at. There are those stages that we shall look at when we are discussing the process of negotiation. And I just want to begin right away as we look at those stages of negotiation. So there are those stages that are key, and the negotiation is procedural. So if it's a procedural, then we should have the first stage, the second, the third, and even up to the last stage, as you shall see in this presentation. Now, let's move on and see what this process look like. So first of all, you need to understand that it begins with the preparation. So you need to prepare, and by preparing, we mean that you have to look at the issue at hand, look at the issues at hand, make sure that you focus on issues that are at play. So these issues should be taken care of. So then the first thing is that know what your interests are and why they are your interests. So you need to know your interests well, make sure that you understand your interests. Then what is the issue at hand? What issue are you going to negotiate on? What are the issues at hand that you want to talk about? There might be issues like conflict within a country, conflict in a society, a conflict within 2 or 3 people. So you look at the issue at hand, the issue that needs negotiation. Then what are the needs versus wants? The needs versus wants. What are the needs versus wants? What do you need? What are the core needs and what are the wants in the negotiation? Then also you prepare, know the strengths and weaknesses of your position and self. So negotiators have problems here and there, but those problems should not serve as limitations. So these weaknesses and strengths should help you negotiate amicably with the warring parties. You also need to understand your self-awareness, personality, characteristics, emotional intelligence, etc. So get to understand those issues: personality, personality characteristics, and emotional intelligence, and even self-awareness. Then you'll be able to go to the negotiating table with an open mind. So you need to deal with emotions. You need to prepare well because emotions are bound to arise, and you need to be very keen on that. Then we move on to preparation number 2. So we have talked about preparation number 1, emotions, self-awareness, know the needs and the wants, etc. So let's look at what preparation number 2 entails or encompasses. So you need to see things from the other side's point of view, the other people's point of view, why they are negotiating, why people are negotiating. So find out why people are negotiating. The next is research the interest of the other side. So you research on the interest of the other side, the part that needs or have come in for a negotiation. Then, so you look at their interests so that you don't bring in your interests to conflict with the interest of the other people. The next is what are their needs: security, autonomy, and recognition. So find out the needs of these people, their security, their autonomy, and recognition. Those are very important issues. So you also look at the needs of these people. Be aware of the unpleasant consequences for both sides if your idea stroke proposal is not accepted. So be aware of the unpleasant consequences for both sides if your idea stroke proposal is not accepted. So you need to be very conversant with the unpleasant consequences for both sides if your idea stroke the proposal is not accepted. Then look at this case. If you succeed, say for example, if you succeed, then who else will be affected? If you succeed, then who else will be affected? So you need to think about that issue keenly. So sometimes when you go to the negotiating table, we don't actually get there for purposes of winning a situation. That's not the basis of negotiation. We are going to help an individual get out of an issue. So you don't go there to win. You are not going there to show your strength in the process. What you are basically going there to do is to help an individual come out of the problem. And this problem, once it's solved, then it becomes the benefit of all the individuals that have taken part in the process of negotiation. So it is not about who has won the negotiation, which team has won, and which one has lost. No. We are doing this for purpose of helping people deal with their issues. So sometimes if you win, who do you think is affected or harmed, advanced? Find out those issues. That's preparation number 2. Then we move on to another area. So the so I have preparation number 9. So at this point in time, what you need to do is you brainstorm all the alternatives that could satisfy your needs. So you brainstorm the alternatives that could satisfy your needs. Be creative, expand the fire. So you need to be creative here as you plan. The question of creativity is very key. They know who is supportive and who is not, or who is less supportive. So know the parties within the negotiating team that are supportive in the process. Then you ask yourself these questions. Does this person who is supportive has the authority to make the decision? Does the person who has the authority have to make? Does the person who has the authority make the decision? So find out if this person's authority is able to make the decision, and that sometimes might affect your process of negotiation. Then are there any penalties for bluffing? And are there time limits associated with the negotiations? So do we have the time limits? Is there a time span? Is there a time limit for the process of negotiation? Sometimes when you go to the negotiating table, you are negotiating about the conflict between two countries. Say, for example, countries that have been fighting for quite some time. They give you the timeline, they give you the deadline for the negotiation. If you are negotiating something about the marriage issues of individuals, then you might be given the timeline, the period when you should begin and when we should end. So work within those timelines given, because it is very important that you do as a pertains to the timelines given. Those timelines are very key because they help sort out many things. So that by the time you finish maybe the negotiation, then you move to another activity. So you don't stay at one point for quite some time. Now look at that table. I want you to look at that table. It's a picture that I've made. Look at it keenly. Interact with that picture for 2 minutes or 3. Then once you have done that, then we shall talk about what is presented on that picture. Now, so far is so good. Hope you have interacted with the picture there. So what we are briefly saying this picture is that for individuals to take part in negotiation process, then there are five key components, five key aspects that individuals should focus on. There are five of them, and I'll list them. I'll talk about each item one after the other. So I'll talk about one after the other. Just a minute, briefly. So we are trying to say that negotiation process needs people with negotiation skills. People who have good negotiation skills are good negotiators. So negotiation skills are skills that entail good communication skills, persuasion skills, we have another skill on negotiation skills called listening skills. How do you listen to individuals? So listening skills is also very key. Then we also have what we call excellent knowledge. So excellent knowledge is another skill. Look at that concept of excellent knowledge. So your knowledge should be excellent in the sense that you are able to think critically and creatively, as we shall see. Then attention to detail. So whenever you are listening, then be attentive, then listen to the details and avoid some of the issues that come up. So your focus should be to draw details from the people. So you focus on the details more than the known issues of the discussion. Then you need to have analytical skills. You need to analyze issues during the process. So you need to have the analytical skills to analyze what is right and what is wrong. And then you find out how you deal with those two issues. Analytical skills are very key in this case. Then you need to have creativity and flexibility. Be creative and flexible during the process. So creativity and flexibility is a very important component that you need also to have as a negotiator. So you have to be creative during the process of negotiation. So we are moving on to another area. We have looked at planning. The first way you can plan, planning 1 and the planning 2. So then at this point in time, we are saying that you imagine also how it will feel to achieve your goal. If you achieved your goal during the negotiation process, how do you feel? You help somebody come out of a problem or some trouble. How do you feel in that case? Do you feel good? Do you feel that you have assisted somebody? Do you feel, does your self-esteem rise? Then role play your opening with a trusted colleague and they rehearse the problematic areas. So also role play the issue. So if the issue is brought before you, then to negotiate on, try as much as possible to role play the issue with your colleague and rehearse the problematic areas. Then you plan ways to break it, buy time. So you plan ways to break the issue, then you buy also time on the issue. You talk about it quite often during the process of negotiation. So like if you are buying time or you are thinking about it, then you say, I need to think over what you just said. So can I have a couple of minutes? Can I have a few minutes? So you tell the people at the table, or you tell the people that have issues that you are negotiating, that they give you some time to think about the issue for a couple of minutes or a few minutes before you give them the feedback. So then during this, the first phase is that you bring the list of your main points and set a set of questions. Try not to interrupt. The more they reveal, the more you learn. So this is now the process itself. So during the process number 1, so you have process 1. So we have looked at it as during 1, bring the list of your main points and a set of questions. Then try not to interrupt. The more they reveal, the more you learn from them. Then when you are negotiating, try to restate as impartially as you can. Like you can say, as I hear, or as I have listened to it, or as I have gotten it from you. So you restate as impartially as you can. So you need to be impartial. Then stay open to new information. So you stay open to new information during the process of a negotiation. Then you also, as a good negotiator, try to take notes. Take notes. Notes are very key because you'll keep on referring to these notes in case there is an issue, in case there is a point you do not understand clearly. So during process number 2, we have said during 2, focus on interests. So you focus on interest, not people, and not gains. So what are the interests of the negotiation? You don't look at the people, you don't look at the gains, you don't look at what you will get out of the process of negotiation. Just focus on the interest that brought you to the table. Then use objective criteria to make decisions and be sure that the other party does as well. So use objective criteria to make decisions. So you need to be objective in your discussion, in your negotiation. Then redirect personal attacks onto the problem at hand. So you redirect the attacks onto the problem that is at hand. The next, during a negotiation process number 3, you listen actively and reflectively. Listen actively and reflectively. You need to be an active listener. Don't be a passive listener. And you need also to be reflective in your listening. Then listen also for what is not said. You listen also for what is not said. Then learn from what the other side say or says. So learn from what the other side have said. So you need to take it as a lesson, a good lesson to learn from other sides. Then stay open to new information. You stay open to new information. Don't just listen to the information, then you're not focusing on the new information that is coming at play. Then synthesize the information you hear and use it in your own argument. You synthesize the information that you hear and use the information in your own argument. Synthesize the information that you hear and use it in your own argument. So you need to think about the information that is given, focus on that information, and use that information for your own purposes of argument. The next is during negotiation stage number 4, or negotiation process number 4, be prepared to walk away if an agreement is not reached. Be prepared to walk away if that agreement is not. Now, walking away from this process is not that you are a failure. You did not go there to win a situation. So be prepared to walk away if the agreement that you had been focusing on is not reached. Then write a note or a memo if contract or agreement is required. E.g., if I don't hear by X, we'll assume that it stands as we have discussed. So once you have done the negotiation process and you have reached the final end, then write a note or a memo, a text, and indicate that if the contract or agreement is required, e.g., if I don't hear by X with the statements or issues that I gave, then I will assume that it stands as we had agreed. So you need to leave a text, you need to leave an information with them in there, so that if in case there is nothing, there is no communication from the parties you have been negotiating with, then you assume that whatever you had discussed stands as it should be, and it should not change. Now then, at this point in time too, I've looked at the 6-step negotiation process. So apart from those steps that you have looked at, such as a preparation 1, preparation 2, planning 1, planning 2, negotiation process 1, negotiation process 2, and negotiation process 3. We also have another model, a summary of how negotiation takes place. So negotiation is not tied to only this step that you are giving here, but different problems, different issues project different solutions. So different problems require different processes. So don't sometimes apply this process to all the problems. They might not be applicable. They might not be applicable. So state the problem stroke issue. So you have to state the problem or issue, the first step. So whenever you are going for negotiation, then it's good that you state the problem or an issue at hand. State the problem or the issue at hand. Then identify the real needs of interest on both sides. So you identify the real needs of interest on both sides. What are their needs? What during the negotiation process? What are these groups looking for in the process of negotiation? Then number two, restate the problem stroke issue. And you say that I think the real issue is as follows. I think the real issue that is affecting people is as follows. Then present the possible solutions. So you give the possible solutions to the problem. You present the possible solutions to the problem at hand. Then you decide on the best solution. You decide on the best solution. You decide on the best solution. The next, after you have decided the best solution, then reach a consensus. So the solution should be followed up with a consensus. Both parties should agree. So this is a 6-step negotiation process that can also be used, and it can be used apart from what I've presented above in detail. So it is basically somehow a summary of what I've just talked about in detail in the first slides. But this one can also be applicable in different situations. So different steps here might be applicable to nearly all the problems or issues that you are negotiating. Now let's move on to another bit. Now I want you to look at the diagrammatic representation there. On that diagram, look at the diagram keenly and see what is presented there. Then we shall pick up from there shortly. I'll give you some 2-3 minutes to read through. Then we look at that summary, what you should remember during the negotiation process. So you can read it for yourself loudly and try to understand those issues. What are some of the things that should be remembered when you are doing the negotiation process? And you also need to look at the other diagram there. There's another drawing the negotiation skills. So look at that item, understand it, then find out what are these skills of negotiation. What are they, and what do they help an individual? Now, so far, so good. I've given this summary on things that you should remember when you are doing a negotiation process. So the first one is don't dwell on people's gain, stick to the interest at hand. So don't dwell on people or gain, to the interest at hand. Then number two, don't close doors when you are doing the negotiation. Sometimes people might get hostile during the process. Then you may wish also to enter the negotiations again. Then the end result of the negotiation should be acceptable to both parties. So two parties, though the process might be tough, but ensure that the final decision reached should be acceptable to both the parties. Then you also remember that if you don't ask, don't expect. So you need to ask for something. So, and if you don't ask, don't expect anything during the process of negotiation. Then negotiations with high expectations do better. So you need to have high expectations during negotiation. Then the pie is almost never fixed. So you don't fix the decision. The decision is never fixed and has never been fixed and will never be fixed during the negotiation process. Then don't be afraid to offend. It's only business. Don't be afraid to offend. This is only business. It's only business that you are doing. And most of the negotiations are as much about emotion as they are money. So negotiations are about emotions. So it's all about emotions that we bring into the negotiation process. So your emotions are key here. Then another thing that you need to remember is that pay attention to both levels of the process. So the two levels are discussion and development of a relationship. So discuss the issue about which decision must be made. Then development of a relationship that leads often to a win-win situation. So those two areas should be paid attention to: discussion of the issue, then development of relationship, which will lead to a win scenario or a situation, so to speak. Then we have on other hand another bit called negotiation skills. So I want to talk about them briefly as we move on. So you need to practice negotiating. So to gain this skill, then you need to practice negotiating, such as listening, attending, communication. Then you need to practice negotiating always. Then determine the strategy according to the type of negotiation. Determine the strategy according to the type of negotiation. Then be flexible and sincere during the negotiation process. So you need to be flexible and sincere during the process of negotiation. You don't come to the negotiating table with a fixed mind that this should be the solution, this should be the decision. Then next is learn to be real, to read the other party's needs. Learn to read other parties' needs. So find out what are the needs of the other parties, the other individuals. What do they really need during the negotiation process? The next is be prepared to compromise. You need to compromise. Sometimes you have fixed your mind on this, but you need also to compromise, because things that you get on the table might not be what you had prepared. Then start by visualizing possible gains, not the losses. So you visualize the gains of the process and not necessarily the losses. So don't think more about the losses more than the gains. So you visualize the gains more than the losses. Now, I just want to move on and give a summary of what we have talked about in this session. I'll give a brief summary on what we have said. So negotiation is a process. As a process, then it needs to take cognizance of those steps that we have just highlighted. So we have talked about the preparation steps. We have talked of the planning steps. We have talked of what the process looks like and what are the stages that are involved in the process. And we have also looked at the 6-step negotiation process, which entirely was a summary of what I had just talked about. Now, we have mentioned the negotiation skills, among other things, and the things to remember during the process of negotiation. So during the process of negotiation, then I want you to be open-minded so that whenever you are negotiating with individuals, then you don't become fixed, you don't actually have fixed mind that this will be the solution to the problem. Then how if that problem does not solve in that particular situation or in that particular direction? So you become frustrated. So make sure that you become flexible during the negotiation process. And with those many remarks on this session, I want to stop that. Then we shall pick up another time at an afternoon session. So thank you for your time, and we just stop there for the moment.